journal. It says if there wasn't a Homo habilis, we'd have to make one up because we need something right there. And as it turns out, Homo habilis is invalid. A mix of ape and human fossils as is kind of the trend. Then that leads us to Homo erectus. And this is where you start getting to the humans. Here's a picture of Homo erectus. And I like this, How Man Began from Time magazine. I don't know why Time magazine has such a vested interest in promoting evolution, but a lot of good covers. And Homo erectus is presented in the textbook as, kind of like one of the first Homo sapiens, or leading right up to the first Homo sapiens. But if you look at Homo erectus, there's the skeleton, completely human. Has some distinct features, just like all of us have distinct features, especially among different people groups when you separate the gene pool, like after the Tower of Babel. But completely human. The skull size of Homo erectus fits within the normal genetic variation of humans, around 1,000 cubic centimeters. So Homo erectus is just 100% human. And that leads us to the Homo sapiens. Our direct ancestors according to the theory of evolution, which is Neanderthal man, Cro-Magnon man, a few others too. We're just going to talk about Neanderthals real quick because they're just so popular. Neanderthals, that's what the Geico caveman's supposed to be, in case you didn't know. It's supposed to be a Neanderthal. And it's kind of interesting, it's kind of ironic, I think, that the way they present Neanderthal in the commercials, intelligent, smart, probably more like what they really were like, which is kind of intriguing to me. But they were first found in Germany in 1856, constructed to look ape-like, even though their brain capacity is bigger than ours. They had bigger brains, which is usually a big deal. First pictures of Neanderthals looked something like this, basically a big old gorilla standing upright. And as we find more fossils that correctly interpret them, we say, no, they look more kind of like this, brutish, more like a man, but still very much an ape man, because they're rearranging the data. An example of this would be here. Dr. Jack Kuzo, who has a great book called Buried Alive about the Neanderthals. You should check it out. He actually got to go and study a lot of the skulls in person, the real thing, which is a rare opportunity. He's a dentist, got to study them, really neat. He looked at me, he noticed quite a few things. First of all, he got this drawing of Neanderthal from the Museum of Berlin. And he noticed, he's a dentist, he knows these things, that they took the jawbone and they moved it up over an inch out of place to give it the idea of a protruding jaw, to make the Neanderthal look more ape-like. When you put the jaw in its right spot, you see very much a flat face, like humans. Again, they're just kind of rearranging the data to make it fit their preconceived ideas. The actual Neanderthal anatomy, well, he definitely did, on average, have a thick eyebrow ridge. There's no doubt about that. Neanderthals tend to be stocky built. Their skeletons are completely human, but very thick. Probably because they lived in harsh weather, probably right after the flood during the Ice Age. And they were probably really, really strong. And they had short arms and short legs overall. Dr. Kuzo points this out, though, that as you look at the Neanderthal skulls, you look at the eyebrow ridge, he tells us that, you realize that your eyebrow ridge never stops growing? That because of the way you chew, the way the muscles are attached, the way they pull on that brow ridge, it always grows. And peoples like peoples like the Aborigines, who are always using their teeth like a vice, using their mouth like a vice to hold stuff and pull, these grow more, which is why you tend to see bigger eyebrow ridges on them. And he says, what you're seeing here with these particular skulls, what looks like someone who's around 200 years old, and the eyebrow ridge just kept growing. Well, isn't it interesting? Don't you remember after the flood, people lived to be around 400 years old for a while. Then they lived to be around 200 years old. So these skulls are probably nothing more than people who were living a long time during a very harsh environment after the flood. Probably an isolated group of people just like the other people after the Tower of Babel. And by the way, look at the variation today. The Aborigines have big eyebrow ridges. Here's a European skull. Here's flathead Indians. You get tons of variation. If you think about it right now, if you killed every one of us, buried us, and dug us up, and just looked at our skulls and the size of our skeletons, you could probably make a good argument for evolution. There's a lot of variation just in this room. So you look at Neanderthals, there's his whole frame, completely human. And as we study Neanderthals more and more, we realize they are human. This is the latest model of Neanderthals. Actually, not the latest, one of the latest. Completely human. We know that they used jewelry, musical instruments, had complex tools, did cave drawings, they could talk really good like us, and they buried their dead. Sounds pretty human, doesn't it? And actually, a lot of scientists now are preceding the fact that, yeah, it looks like Neanderthals mated with other humans, cross-species, interbreeding, as they call it, but they're just all human. Makes perfect sense. And we know, for example, in multiple sites where Neanderthals and modern-day looking humans were buried together. But here's something to think about. Evolution suggests that Neanderthals were around for around 100,000 years. 100,000 years. Think about this. In just 2,000 years, in 100 generations, the population of the Earth has gone from 300 million to 6 billion in just 100 generations. Now, if Neanderthals were around for 2,500 generations, we should be finding a whole lot of Neanderthal skeletons everywhere. We can't find hardly any. We find about 4,000, a few thousand total human skeletons. That's it. That is all. Great evidence that they weren't around that long, and they're completely human after the flood. And as we learn more and more, this is interesting, we compare their DNA to ours. And their DNA will differ, their mitochondrial DNA will differ by up to 22 different replacement substitutions within the DNA code between the Neanderthal and human. Well, all of us, we differ by 1 to 24 substitutions in our DNA code. So they're close. Actually, Neanderthals are closer to me than some of you are. But they're considered not human. What does this mean? Well, if there are some humans that are